Hi guys, and welcome to this video. So as a data analyst, you will often get data samples from various sources, and you need to perform various operations on this data, like for example cleaning the data or slicing or dicing the data or even joining the data. So I'm going to cover one scenario here which I encounter quite often in my day-to-day job. So let's assume I have got two departments, and the first department sends me a file of the employees. Okay, so we have the employee ID, the person ID, the department this employee is from, the salary band, and their title. So of course, this doesn't contain details of the employee per se or the person per se. So then let's assume I get another file from another department, let's assume human resources, and it contains details of the person, right? So as you can see, each employee has a person ID, and this file contains details of that person. Now I might need to join both these files or worksheets. So let's see how we can do that. So typically when I get such a problem, I try to find the solution which is the quickest, or maybe which is acceptable both to me and the end user. Okay, so for example, I could quite simply take both these files, load them into a SQL database, and write a simple SQL query to join them. But maybe that's not the best option. Or for example, I can use Python and write a little program. So I mean, as a developer, I might have my choices. But in this particular case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Excel itself. And in Excel also there are a few ways of doing it. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the VLOOKUP function. Okay, so let's again focus on this first worksheet. As you can see, I've got the person ID, and for each person out here, I want to add more details to this worksheet. So for example, I want to add the person's first name, last name, and gender. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm just going to pick this up and copy it here. Okay, so I need to populate this information. So let's start with first name. Okay, so just remember, I'm going to use this value as a key and try to look up the corresponding value from this table. Another thing to note is, quite interestingly, my person ID P01 may not be in the first column. As you can see out here, it's in the in the row. It's in the 7th row. So I need to look through this entire table. I need to look based on the person ID and find the corresponding value. So I'm going to look through. My lookup is based on this entire table. And this table starts from row 2, A2, and it goes all the way to row 7 of column D. Okay, so A2 to D7. So let's see how we can do it. Okay, so what I will do out here is I will just write the lookup function. Okay, so we have equal to VLOOKUP. I'm going to do it in a straightforward way. I mean, typing it manually. So now I want to look up, and I want to look up the value from B2 in this worksheet. Okay, so the other thing is, can I just write, so just remember, as I'm doing my lookup in the employee worksheet, I'm always looking up a particular column, which is the column B, but my rows will differ. Okay, so for example, in this case, I'm looking up B2, but in the next row, I'll look up B3. So now we are dealing with absolute and relative values. So since my column is always going to be absolute, I'm going to write $B out here. But my rows are relative. So in this particular case, I've got row 2 out here. Okay, so $B, which is absolute, and row 2, which is relative. So the next thing is, okay, so this is my key. Now, where am I looking up? Okay, so as you can see, as we discussed earlier, I'm looking up in the person Excel sheet. So let's write that down here. So I've got person, and we demarcate it with a exclamation mark. Okay, so that's the worksheet, and I'm looking at a table. Okay, an entire table, and we said it starts with column A, row 2, and all the way to column D, row 7. So I'm going to keep those in absolute values out here. And in this particular case, I'm returning column 2. and it's an exact lookup. So let's see if this works. Okay, there we go. So in this case, all I need to do is I can just pull this down here and the formula automatically takes hold, as you can see. So let's put our mouse here. So as you can see, again, it's always B since it's a relative value, column B, but in this case, it's looking up on row 3. So that's relative. So now what I can do is, since I've done my, I've created my formula properly, I can just copy this formula and go out here. So in this case, can you just guess what parameter I need to change to get the last name? Right. So I just changed this one out here, right? So I just change that and I get the surname, and again I can just drag the same thing here. And then I can do the same thing out here and I can just change this to 4 and get that here and the gender. Okay, and as you can see, we've got it all and it's all correct. So that's the way I would do this case, guys. It's quite straightforward. The VLOOKUP function is a very popular function. I mean, I've been seeing it being used. If you were to do a survey among individuals using Excel quite often, you'll find that the VLOOKUP function is a very popular function. It takes some getting used to. But it's quite straightforward. A bit of practice and you'll be fine. Also, it's good to know the concepts of the relative and absolute values. That's quite useful here. So I would suggest you just create your own scenario in your mind, like I have done. And because if you know your data well, it'll help you understand the implementation better. So do that and practice it a few times. A couple of limitations of the VLOOKUP function. So for example, I think you can only look up a single key. So if I were to look up, so in this case, my key is just the person ID. Okay. So if I were to have a composite key made out of multiple columns, that will be difficult. Of course, I can merge both these columns into a single column. I will maybe create another video for that, but that can be done. Similarly, the key should be the extreme left column. So that's possible. So that's a prerequisite. So you can read, I put a link in the video which will give you some more checks and balances that you have to keep in mind before you can use a VLOOKUP. So that's it. This was a straightforward video. I will create another video of how to do this in Python for all the Pythonistas, as well as another video on how to use SQL, for example. And I will use a SQL database which is available like a test database on the web, so that anybody can do it. So that's one option. Then I will get into more complicated scenarios, like a master detail table, how to join it. In this case, you have a one-to-one mapping, but if you have a one-to-many mapping, how would you join that? But that'll be for future videos. So if you like this video, please like it, comment on it, subscribe to my channel, and if you have any requirements or any videos that you think I should make, please do let me know. Thanks a lot.